Welcome to week 12 of our lockdown diaries. And things slowly seem out there to be getting back to normal in some ways. And so I'd really like to ask two things of you, really, to start with. One is, as things slowly start to get back to normal in some ways, can you ever think about what's happened in the last 12 weeks? Because a number of you really kindly sent some materials to the online project, but I know there's tons more stuff out there, and we'd really like to capture that before the things move on in different sorts of ways. We're by no means out of this pandemic, but we may be moving from one phase to another. So before things are lost, please, photographs, reflections, anything, please do send them in. The second thing is, even though we are going to see some shops opening, we're going to see some other things opening, this doesn't make a radical change to the way in which we as a university are going to be working. And on Monday last, we did a forum for our extended Warwick leaders, just to try to describe some of the processes that we're going through to think about how we make sure that we meet our various objectives and slowly open campus. That is now a video. It's about an hour. So please, if you get a spare hour, please have a look at that and try to understand with us how collectively we can open up the campus again over the next few months, not over the next few weeks. I had a wonderful discovery when I was invited to the Warwick WI meeting, a Zoom drink. I didn't realise that you could take drinks to these sorts of things, and now I've discovered these sort of late afternoon, early evening drinks meetings, which are very, very welcome, and I always take a glass of wine to them, and I encourage you all to be responsible. But it's a great way actually just to unwind at the end of a day. It doesn't matter whether you've had a day working from home, a day as a key worker, a day on furlough. It's just a great way to unwind and connect with people. Michelle, amongst others, has said to me, what's that thing on the wall behind you? Today there isn't a thing on the wall behind me, because normally what I try to remember to do is to take it down when I'm on calls of this sort, so that there's a sort of, at least as much as possible, a kind of clean background. But as you will have been able to tell, I've forgotten on many, many occasions. So I did promise Michelle that I would say what it is, and it's this. And what it is, it's a pennant from the 1966 World Cup. I'm a big football fan, in case you didn't know. And of course, 1966 was really important. England actually won the World Cup. And somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s, I think the story is that my father was in a pub. He worked in London for those years. And for whatever reason, he came home afterwards with this pennant and gave it to me. And I've always really enjoyed it and really liked it. And my wife got it framed for me a few years ago. So that's what it is. It's a pennant from the 1966 World Cup that I just really like, and sort of says something to me about my childhood, actually. Talking of football, something really important happened this week. The English Football League First Division finished, which means that Coventry City are champions and promoted to the Championship. And it is just the most fantastic achievement. Some of you may well know that Coventry City isn't actually my football team. Doesn't matter. For us as a university, for the city, it is just the most wonderful thing to have Coventry City right back just below the Premiership, and no doubt over the next few years pushing to get into the Premiership. It's a fantastic achievement from a great manager, great set of players, and of course all the supporters. Playing away, all the home matches have had to be played away this season, and still to achieve that is really fantastic. Thanks to everybody who's been writing to me again this week. I always really appreciate it. As you know, I always try now, the last few weeks anyway, to try to think about what are the common themes that tie together the sorts of things you're saying to me. And I think really this week there's been one overarching common theme, which has been ongoing conversations. It's things that people have been talking with me about. It's things that we've been talking about. It's stuff that's been going on that people have been reflecting on. So just a quick example, we had Senate on Wednesday, the first online Senate. And at just the right moment, Poppy the Penguin came in to lighten the mood quite considerably. Elaine's one of the people who've been writing to me about gardening. And I think I mentioned once or twice that I've really got back into gardening in this period. A bit of time in the evening, after a Zoom or Teams drink in the garden is a really fantastic thing. And for those of us lucky enough to have gardens, this really has been the time to appreciate it. And Elaine's been talking about what she's been doing. She's had one of those projects that I would really, really love, the demolition of a shed. I'm afraid I'm one of those people who really like to knock things down. I really like to dig things. I'm not great at maintenance, but I like that kind of project stuff, and it's been fantastic to see what she's been doing and achieving. Also, Elaine, you tell me that you walked 28 kilometres over one weekend, and I've looked at that several times. Can that be true? That's an extraordinary distance, and puts me to shame. I'd hoped this week to be able to unveil a personal milestone in terms of my own walking, my own steps, but I haven't made it, so I'll move on and hopefully be able to share that with you next week. Mandeep's been in touch. Now, one of the common themes that people have had is how streets have been getting together through this period to be supportive and to engage with each other. And Mandeep tells us about the street in a village near Bedworth. 3 homes originally on a WhatsApp group, growing and growing and growing, 15 homes supporting the elderly, being able to support those being shielded, supporting people who've had to go through a funeral in this period of time, and also supporting people through the birth of a new baby. Wonderful to hear and to see. Eddie is one of our retired members of staff. And Eddie, you weren't directly in touch with me, you were in touch with a colleague. Please be in touch directly. Eddie is writing a book at the moment, and one of the things he's going to be talking about, he says, is Roman commentary. And we were talking about Roman commentary a couple of weeks ago when I was saying about the Warwick Classics Network and all the things they were doing. Eddie, if you know stuff about Roman commentary, I'd love to see just a page or something. It'd be fantastic to learn about. As I said up to a couple of weeks ago, I hadn't really had any idea at all about the concept of Roman commentary, which is strange considering there are bits of Roman remains all across the university. So I'd love to know more about that. I've had several emails with Sarah. Now, Sarah is one of the many people, probably the majority of us, who have found the whole aftermath of the racist murder of George Floyd really troubling and disturbing and unnerving in some ways. How these sorts of things can still go on in our society, and of course, what it has done is it's unearthed, it's revealed, it's allowed the media to shine a light on all sorts of unacceptable behaviours, all sorts of unacceptable things that have been said in our country, in our community as well. And what Sarah's done, she set up an Instagram page, which is called @BlackLivesMatters_Warwickshire. And it's to be an educational page, really, so that those of us who don't experience firsthand those sorts of things can learn and can understand a bit more. Many of us will have watched what's happened in Bristol with the tearing down of the statue of Edward Colston. Bristol is one of the cities that do a so-called slave walk, and basically it puts together various sites where wonderful buildings have been put up out of the profits from the slave trade, or where people have been celebrated for things they've done, even though they only became significant or rich because of the slave trade. And I've done the Bristol slave walk on a couple of occasions. It takes about 2/3 of a day if you do it properly. And of course, the Colston statue is one of the centerpieces of that work. And it's an extraordinary story, actually, in some ways, Colston. I mean, a mass murderer, 80,000 people transported from Africa while he was in charge of his company. Probably 20,000 of them died en route. And yet he became this philanthropist as well. And over the centuries, it was the philanthropy that was remembered, not the slave owning. The slave owning was forgotten. The statue gets put up. People are saying, here's a son of Bristol who did good things, forgetting all the terrible things that he did as well. And I think it was something like 25, 30 years after the statue was put up that his real behaviours were shared with the public. Not for the first time, of course, but for the first time in modern times. It's this really difficult process that we're all trying to go through at the moment of remembering and forgetting and trying to work through what we should celebrate and how we should revile the things that we must revile. And Sarah's going to help us, I think, with that. And I know a number of other people are as well. So please share your thoughts and any ways that you're trying to learn and get better informed, or share some of your experiences as well. That would be very important for us all. Tracy said, one of the big themes of this whole period has been Thursday night, the clap for carers, and it's gone. We've done it. It stopped at a particular moment, and what do we do now? And what Tracy's doing is a really wonderful thing. She said she's using that time on a LinkedIn page, using that time to write thank yous to people. And she's going to go through the alphabet, working through the alphabet, just to write on her LinkedIn page thank yous to people. And I just thought it was a wonderful idea to use that time that we've all put aside to say thank you for people, to carry on saying thank you to people. A wonderful thing. Carol's on furlough, and she's been one of the wonderful volunteers who've been doing fantastic things. So many of you have been volunteering, and it's been so wonderful. What Carol's been doing is she's been cooking food, one of the team, cooking food at St John's Church in Leamington. And what they do there, apparently, is they cook food for all who need it. It's not one of the voucher systems. It's simply if you come up and you're hungry, you can get some hot food. And she tells me the tale of the police being in touch because an elderly lady had said to them, all I have in my home is cereal and bread for toast. I've got no food at all. And Carol and her team were able to provide food. And it just shows you how wonderful this volunteering period is, because it's enabling us all to reach out to people to whom we need to reach out, that perhaps we wouldn't have been able to do so without our volunteering works at this period of time. Tina had a similar experience going for a walk with a friend, socially distanced, just going past an elderly lady in her front garden, just desperate to talk to people, very isolated, very alone. So please, if there's anybody that you can reach out to who you think are in these categories, even though it is going to be possible for people now to engage in these social bubbles or whatever we call them, even though that is possible, please do take a moment if you can to reach out. One of the other things Tina is doing is she's making face masks and face coverings. And that's a great thing to do. And I know a number of you are doing this at the moment. Please, may I make one request? If you are in the process of making face coverings for yourself or for family, for friends, please can you see if you can put something visible across here? For people who have hearing challenges, if you can't see the face, the mouth, it's much more difficult to hear what's going on. So please, if you can, find see-through material so that people can see this part of the face. It's really, really important to be inclusive as we are trying to in everything that we do as a society and as a community. Now I've got my laptop here to one side because one of the other things I wanted just to reflect back on is I mentioned Rolf the cat last week, and I mentioned the poems, and there are some fantastic poems here, and I just wanted to share a couple of the poems because in these poems there are things about what we were doing and saying last week. So let me give you two quick poems on Rolf the cat's Twitter page. What greater honour can there be than to get a mention from the VC? It really is a nice surprise. You're a huge success in all our eyes, which I thought was rather wonderful, but I preferred this one. David and I both feel humbled to be congratulated this way. In fact, I can speak for both of us. It's really made our day. To be mentioned so very highly by the VC himself, a very lovely thing to say. Today we'll toast his health. Cheers, VC. Cheers, Rolf. Make sure everyone can see the football club on this. And I'm sure that will encourage lots of you to send messages in. Actually, I wanted just to close by saying we've now got some figures to understand just how many people are watching these videos. And it's absolutely fantastic to see that we had a high point of nearly 6,000 people watching these videos every single week. And now we're about 3,000, just under 3,000 people. Thank you so much. It's wonderful. It really only works though because you're sending in materials and helping me share with you what's going on in the community. So please do carry on doing that. That's enough for me this week. Have a great week next week in whatever you're doing. I know that for some people, life at the moment is still a really, really big challenge. And there's one individual who doesn't want to be mentioned who wrote to me this week after a day and a week and a month and a year of really desperate frustration. It looks like the thing that really put this person over the edge was, it's always the small things, isn't it? The washing machine door wouldn't open and there's all that water inside and you've got to drain it and all the rest of it. It's just those things that are so frustrating. I know, we all know that it's still really tough for everybody. But the more we can stick together, the more we can share, the more we as a community can be one, the better I hope it will be for everybody. Thanks very much, and speak to you again next week.